Hey everyone, it's Short Fiction Friday. This week I only read two stories. I read Who Goes There by John W. Campbell and Guilty Party by Stephen Laws. Let's start with the more famous of the two stories. Who Goes There by John W. Campbell was first published in Astounding Science Fiction in August of 1938, and it was published under a pseudonym, Don A. Stewart. So this story has been adapted a few times for film, most famously filmed as The Thing by John Carpenter. So the basic story here is there's a team of scientists in the Antarctic. While they're exploring, they find a dead alien frozen in the ice. It appears to have been there for millions of years. They dig it out of the ice and take it back to their base. They decide to thaw it out. And of course, one man's assigned to watch it. As it's thawing out, they discover it's not as dead as they first thought. The alien escapes into the Antarctic base. It finds their sled dogs. And then the scientists witness that this alien can imitate the dogs, like assimilate them and turn into a dog almost perfectly. And then, of course, the idea is that the alien can imitate dogs, or it could imitate a human, and you wouldn't be any wiser. It would be almost impossible to tell them apart. So then the story is one of paranoia. Where is this alien? Who is it imitating? And how can we figure out who is the thing? So yeah, this is quite similar to the John Carpenter version. If you've seen John Carpenter's The Thing, you'll definitely recognize certain scenes in this short story. As you're reading it, you'll think, oh, that's the dog scene. That's the blood scene. Some of the characters from the film are very similar here, like MacReady and Blair. But there's also some different elements, aspects that haven't been filmed, such as the thing seems to affect the men's dreams. So it has some sort of psychic powers as well. This is an excellent story, but I think there were a couple of elements that I felt the John Carpenter movie improved. For example, with the blood, there's a whole subplot about them trying to work out immunity and how the creature's blood works. There was a scientific aspect there that just wasn't explained very well. Also, the alien escapes, and immediately some of the characters have turned their distress up to 10. You know, they're hysterically laughing, they're hysterically praying, they're threatening to kill everyone on the Antarctic base. Whereas I quite like the approach of both the 1950s film and the 1980s film. The characters are a lot more determined and kind of detached in a way. You still get this paranoia and fear, but they're not immediately in hysterics about the whole situation. All right, overall, this is an excellent story. Definitely give it a read. Okay, the other short story that I read this week was Guilty Party by Stephen Laws. This was originally published in Fear, the September and October 1988 issue. Our main character, Stuart, he's been at a work party. They're all drunk. They're on their way home now. They're on the bus, and Stuart accidentally gets off at the wrong location. So he's now in an isolated country town. He doesn't really know how he's going to get home, and he starts being stalked by a werewolf. Eventually, he finds shelter at a spooky country house, and that's when the story takes a real turn. It goes in a more bizarre direction. This was a good short story. If you wanted to be super critical of it, you could be, because the start's quite generic, you know, just a man being stalked. And then when he gets to the house, it gets quite silly in some ways, but it's very entertaining. Definitely when I was reading through it, the question in my head was, wait, how long have these characters been in this spooky house? You know, it feels like they've just been waiting around for years for the plot to happen. So it's a bit silly in that way, but I didn't have a huge problem with it. Overall, this was pretty fun. All right, and to rank these stories, I'm putting them into my big list here, the top 15. Who Goes There is excellent. I'm going to put that at number 5. With both Who Goes There and The Fly that I've read really recently, it's tough for me to disassociate my enjoyment of the movies, which I've seen many, many times, both The Fly and The Thing, with my enjoyment of the short stories. But I think both of them are excellent. Guilty Party was a fun read, but it's not going to make the top 15. And actually, I'm going to expand this top 15 into a top 20. I think I've got enough really good stories on this list now that I don't want to cut off some of the better ones. So there we go. I'll put up the top 20 now. All right, let's pick some new short stories for next week. The way this works is very simple. We got book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The 6-sided die selects the book. The 12-sided die selects the story within the book. All right, first roll. 2 and 4. It's the body horror book. If there's a pencil mark beside the story, I skip over it. I've already read those. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Body Politic by Clive Barker, and that's 41 pages. I'm going to keep rolling the dice until I get to at least 50 pages. Okay, second roll. 4 and 8. That's the werewolf book. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll be reading The Nighthawk by Dennis Etchison, and that's 16 pages, which takes us up over the 50-page minimum. All right, I'll put the 2 selected stories up on the screen here. Go read these short stories if you have access to them. I'm really looking forward to Clive Barker. I've not read anything by him yet. All right, thanks for watching. See you all next week. Bye.